all the time. Powered by Arkansas, for Arkansas. The John Nabors Show is live from the Natty State Sports Studios.
And welcome into the John Nabors Show here live from Natty State Sports Studios. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching in on this beautiful day here in the great state of Arkansas. I am your host, John Nabors, and appreciate each and every one of you for making us a part of your afternoon. This afternoon, there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about today. We're going to get into some basketball talk, as well as have Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South, joining us. Looking forward to catching up with him. But I also know that people are probably tuning in to hear me address the elephant in the room. And trust me, folks, I want to, and I will, I promise. But that'll have to come at a later date when I'm actually able to. However, I do want to say this at least. I love Scotty Bordelon. I love Curtis Wilkerson. I wish them nothing but the best of luck in their next venture. And I'm always going to be in their corner and always going to be here for them if they ever need anything at all. Good luck to them. But we'll address that later. Trust me. But there is a lot of things, though, we still want to talk about here on today's show, because we know that with the summertime and kind of in full swing, it's amazing. We are entered into the later part of June. And really, it's kind of slow right now until SEC Media Day starts up next month down in Dallas, which is going to be a lot of fun, and looking forward to catching up with a lot of people down there and getting to see it. I haven't been to Dallas in, man, so long. It's like literally just feel like it was like 4 months ago. But it'll be weird to have it down there in Dallas, but it'll still be SEC Media Days. It'll still be the spirit of everything. So I can't wait to get down there and to make that happen. But with all that being said, though, I did want to lead off with something basketball related, because for those of you who may care or may not care, maybe you're a fan or not a fan, last night was the end of the NBA Finals. The Boston Celtics took care of business and beat the Dallas Mavericks 4-1 in the NBA Finals and went on to win one of their 18,000 NBA titles, is what it seems like. It's funny. I've always rooted for the Celtics. I guess I would say I'm a, quote, fan, but not really. I don't want to feel like that's demeaning towards actual fans who are diehards. But I've always been someone who's rooted for Boston because Joe Johnson got drafted by them back in. He was one of my favorite Razorback basketball players growing up, and the fact that he was with Boston just kind of set in there. But it's amazing that they're just a historic franchise that had so much success and has all these NBA titles. Yet since like 1984 or whatever, this is only their second one. So you're talking about like 40 years. They've only won 2. But it's neither here nor there. But it's something maybe you watched, something maybe you paid attention to, something maybe you didn't pay attention to. And that's fine. I'm not going to sit here and just level you with NBA talk. I promise I won't do that, because you don't want to hear it. And you definitely don't want to hear it from somebody of the likes of me. But I will say, though, that last night when I was watching it and kind of seeing where Boston was way ahead in the game and seeing that it was basically inevitable that they were going to be winning the NBA title, I kept seeing little glimpses whenever they'd show the bench or show a wide shot or whatever of former Razorback Jordan Walsh. Jordan Walsh, a guy who was on the Razorback basketball team just a year ago, or at least a little over a year ago, was winning an NBA title with the Boston Celtics. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that he was somebody that just played these significant minutes and had all these significant stats and just went crazy with it and was such a pivotal part of the team. Because he was a rookie. He got in here and there, mainly in garbage time. He's got a long road in front of him, has hopefully a lot of success in his pro career. But he wasn't really a factor in the success of the Boston Celtics this year, at least in the significant way that you would think like a Jason Tatum would be, or a Jaylen Brown, or anybody like that. But still, it was so cool seeing him, a guy that, someone like I've covered, that I've personally talked to, that I saw him in that game and in those emotions right after he was pivotal in Arkansas, beating Kansas to head to the Sweet 16. His entire personality and everything came to fruition. Like, all of that was just really cool, thinking that here he is. And just thinking about the journey, too. This is a kid that was in high school just a couple of years ago. Like, he was literally getting done with senior prom and went and played a year at Arkansas. And then a year after that, he has an NBA title. He has an NBA title ring, a championship. That has got to be an insane ride. He just turned 20. So congratulations to him. That's got to be an awesome thing. Something that not many people are ever going to be able to have. It's hard enough being on a team that wins a title, but to have it done in your first year as a rookie, where who knows what his future may hold with Boston and wherever it's in the NBA. But to say that you've always had that, you've experienced that, you experienced the celebrations, the hard work, the build up, all of that you got to experience firsthand, it's got to be an awesome thing. And who knows, maybe we'll have a chance to actually talk to Jordan Walsh when it's all said and done and what that was like. But it got me to thinking, though, how, man, I feel like that never happens. I don't get to see much of that. A former Razorback, that is, going out and winning an NBA title, at least being on a team that wins an NBA title. But then I started thinking, you know what? That's kind of, in a way, wrong. Because you had Daniel Gafford on the other side, which Daniel Gafford had, that could not have been a better deal of Dallas being able to get him on their team. He averaged 11 points, nearly 8 rebounds, and nearly 2 assists per game while shooting 72.5% from the field. Like, Daniel Gafford was awesome for Dallas. So either way, you're going to have a former Razorback winning an NBA title. But then, here recently, Bobby Portis, as we know, winning an NBA title. I believe Moses Moody was on the team with the Golden State Warriors. Probably should have looked that up. But I'm pretty sure, yeah, he was on the team, at least that won an NBA title. And who knows, there may be a lot more that end up doing it, but it's actually happened more recently. And it started kind of pumping into my head of like, okay, so is that more of just, hey, coincidence? Maybe just right place, right time. And there may be a little bit of element of that, but the other element is that Arkansas has actually put enough, or has been putting enough, players into the NBA pretty consistently. Like under the Muss era, at least, you've been able to have a player drafted each and every year. Now, this year's probably going to be the exception to that rule. I don't see any player from this past year's team for Arkansas getting drafted. Could be wrong, but every year that Muss was the head coach, someone got drafted. Isaiah Joe was drafted after year 1. Moses Moody was drafted the next year. Jalen Williams was drafted the next year. The 3 freshmen, one-and-done players, were all drafted the next year. So that helps when you have a little bit more consistency. But even before that, like Daniel Gafford and Bobby Portis were 2 players that played 2 years at Arkansas and got drafted. And one was in 2019, the other one was in 2015. And then before that, folks, it was dry. It was really, really dry when it came to draft picks. Now, I know players would also get in on free agency, work their way up, find a way to bust through. So I'm not just saying that, the only players that we're counting here is getting drafted, but stay with me on this because I'm going to have a point here, I promise. But there is not much pre-Bobby Portis, because before that you had Patrick Beverly, who was drafted by the Lakers in the second round with a 42 overall pick. And that had already kind of been soured because of how he got kicked out of school or kicked off campus and everything. Before that, Sonny Weems got drafted to the Bulls in 2008. Brewer was in 2006. And then you had to go all the way back to Joe Johnson in 2001 for the Celtics getting drafted. And then before that, you had to go all the way back to Darnell Robinson, who got drafted in the second round by the Mavericks in 96. So, you may hear those numbers and be like, hey, that's not too bad. But again, considering the type of program and some of the type of talent that's come through Arkansas, you expected it to be a little bit more. So if you take that in comparison, before Muss arrived, well, let's do it. How about this? We'll do this. When Muss arrived, the players that got drafted under Eric Musselman literally was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players. Got to do my count. Yeah, 6 players. 6 players that got drafted in the NBA under Eric Musselman. And if you want to go, okay, so what was the previous 6? 19, 15, 09, 08, 06, 01. So in a span of 3 years, you had 6 players. To get another 6 players before that, it spans from 2019 to 2001. 18 years that you had in a span of where you got 6 draft picks. It's pretty mind-blowing to think about that. Because even in the 90s with Nolan Richardson, you had Darnell Robinson, Corliss Williamson, Todd Day, Oliver Miller, Lee Mayberry, Isaiah Morris. I mean, 4 of those players were on the same team in 92. So, it just really shows the gap in the deal that was like really going on. And now to see more recently where yes, there are more players in the NBA now than Arkansas's had in quite some time, but you're also having more frequency of them getting drafted. Must did a really good job of that. But now you have John Calipari as your head coach. Now you have somebody who has been really, really good at all of this and has done something with a lot of different draft picks. And I'm going to tell you about those draft picks here in just a second. But folks, I got to tell you about Alumni Hall first. We know that they're the ultimate Razorback shopping experience of all time. If you're a Razorback fan, you want to be able to look the part. You want to be able to have the apparel. You want to be able to have everything that you possibly need to really showcase your fandom for the Razorbacks through the thick and thin, even though it's been a lot more thin and as thick recently. But still, if you're going to be wearing it, if you're going to be rocking it, you got to do it in the best way possible. And that's why you have to do it through Alumni Hall. Alumni Hall is always going to get you taken care of and squared away for anything that you could possibly want, whether it's for men, for women, for kids, or even for your pets. They have the nicest type of apparel too, whether it's Johnny O, Columbia. You have Peter Millar. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's pretty nice. And even Nike. I mean, they have it all. If you see any Razorback apparel out and about, odds are they got it from Alumni Hall. Their assortment and their catalog is tremendous. And they're located conveniently right here in Fayetteville. But a lot of you who listen to this show and everything that we do, you may not even live in the Northwest Arkansas area. You may not even live in the state of Arkansas. Well, don't you worry, because if you go to nattystatesports.com/alumni hall, that's nattystatesports.com/alumni hall, you'll be able to check out their full catalog there as well and be able to get your orders shipped directly to your door. So check them out today. It's Alumni Hall, the ultimate Razorback shopping experience at nattystatesports.com/alumni hall. Okay, so let's move to John Calipari. John Calipari, yeah, he is John Calipari. And he is a guy who has been around a long time. He was at UMass, he was at Memphis, and he's been at Kentucky. Those are the three stops that he's had in major college basketball. And I'm going to list these, it may seem like a little bit redundant, but I'm going to list these players that he has had drafted into the NBA since he has been a head coach. These are the players that he's had drafted into the NBA, starting with the very beginning with UMass. Marcus Camby, DeJuan Wagner, Shane Williams, Rodney Carney, Derrick Rose, Tyreek Evans, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Patrick Patterson, Eric Bledsoe, Daniel Orton, Brandon Knight, Anthony Davis, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Terrence Jones, Marcus Teague, Nerlens Noel, Archie Goodwin, remember him, Julius Randle, James Young, Karl Anthony Towns, Willie Cauley-Stein, Trey Lyles, Devin Booker, Jamal Murray, Skal Labissiere. I always forget his name. I think that's how it is. You know who I'm talking about. De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk. Definitely remember him. Bam Adebayo, Kevin Knox, SGA, man of course, all of that from Oklahoma City. PJ Washington, Tyler Hero, Keldon Johnson, Tyrese Maxey, Emmanuel Quickley, Isaiah Jackson, Shaden Sharp, Ty Washington Jr., Cason Wallace. Folks, those are all the players that John Calipari has had drafted into the NBA. And if you were one of those crazy people that were sitting there counting how many names to list off, I can tell you, 40. 40. And those are the first round picks. Didn't even get in the second round. That's the first round picks for John Calipari. I don't really think that you can put enough importance on that, on the amount of players that John Calipari has put into the NBA. Now, some of you are going to say, well, one and dones, they would have gotten drafted no matter what. Didn't matter where they went, they would have gotten drafted because they were that good. And you're right. You're absolutely right. But when that 1 year they played for John Calipari, they could have gone anywhere in the country. They could have gone to any school, and odds are their draft stock, their entire process probably wouldn't have changed much. I'm not going to say it's going to be the exact same number, but probably wouldn't change much. But they chose to go to Kentucky and play for John Calipari. And by them choosing that, these players are forever, at least, with their respective schools, whether it's UMass or Memphis, but especially Kentucky, they're always going to be connected. And for all of you Razorback fans out there, especially you Razorback basketball fans, there's probably a lot of you that hate the NBA. There's a lot of you that just don't like it. And I get it. It's a different type of league than college basketball. The NFL and college football are definitely different. I mean, there's a lot of differences between them, but you at least feel like the same spirit is there. Now, with the NBA and college basketball, it's hard to really think about how much different it could possibly be. So some of you may hate it. Some of you may not watch it. Some of you may not care. And that's fine. I get it. Totally understand it. But let's be honest. If you're a Razorback basketball fan and there is a particular team that has a former Razorback that you know, that you're familiar with, that is playing, maybe even playing really well, you may be more apt to watch it. Because I can promise you, none of you would probably give two rips about watching the Milwaukee Bucks at any point in time. But because Bobby Portis is on there, because Patrick Beverley's on there, suddenly you're a little bit more interested. A lot of you may not have cared about watching the Dallas Mavericks. May not have even been your favorite team. But you really loved watching Daniel Gafford when he was playing in Arkansas. He's a lot of fun. Great player. Really exciting. Great athleticism. Great Razorback. And now he's in the league doing big things where you'd be more apt to watch him. The point is that players that go from your favorite college team into the pros may slowly and surely bring you into paying a little bit more attention to it. Maybe. It's a possibility. And with Cal, I don't think he's going to be slowing down at all when it comes to his NBA draft picks. Because even with the team that he has assembled this year, I feel pretty confident that there's at least three NBA draft picks on this year's team. Now, you got to win on the court. You got to be successful, all of that. But that is something that can elevate your brand more so than most of the things that we've already discussed. Being able to elevate your brand in the way of, hey, I love what I do and I love this team and as long as they're wearing the Razorbacks, that's great. But, hey, if you go to the majority of the NBA and you look around in the NBA and you see the teams, the guys that are on these rosters that are only composed of 12, 13 players, you look around on these rosters, if you can say, well, this team, all have an Arkansas player that played in Bud Walton Arena, player that wore that Razorback logo, a player that may come back, during their pro time and do whatever that takes for the school, for the team, for the program, for Cal, that just elevates the brand. Because Arkansas's got a pretty solid brand in the college basketball landscape. It may not be as high as some of the Blue Bloods, but it's still pretty high. But the longer that Cal is at Arkansas, and the more success that he has, of course, on the court, that's important. But even more so, the more success he has is putting guys into the league and into the NBA, which no one has done a better job than him. Folks, you're looking at, say if Cal's just here for 5 years in his contract. That's 5 years. Say he does great things, successful, puts guys in the league, all of that. There's a chance that in 10 years from now, we'll even scale back a little bit less than that, 7 to 10 years from now, in that span, there's a chance that almost every single NBA team has a representative from the University of Arkansas. And in some cases, some teams may have multiple. Some of them old veterans, some of them young bloods, young rookies, whatever it is. They may have plenty of representation at the University of Arkansas in the NBA. And how cool is that? Anytime someone gets introduced, it's about the University of Arkansas. Anytime that someone gets talked about, it's like, I remember when he played at Arkansas. I remember that game winner he hit when he was at Arkansas. I remember that national championship that he was a part of, that national championship team he was a part of at Arkansas. Gets brought up all the time, and it just gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling inside of like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Oh, yeah, Arkansas. Hey, Arkansas, they got mentioned in a positive way. I like that. I want more of that. Let's keep that going. It's going to provide that feeling for all of you because it provides it for me, a sense of pride. It's like, yeah, Arkansas. Look at all that. Look at all these players doing great things. And then Arkansas gets connected to them. I see no reason to believe that Cal does not continue that on, folks. I see no reason to believe that he does not continue to do the job that he's been doing and being able to still be the same old Cal that people have seen over the past 20 years. But of course, people, I get winning on the floor at Arkansas is what's most important. You are not going to care as much when you have players drafted in the first round or whatever, if you either missed out on the NCAA tournament or you got bounced in the first round. You're not going to care as much. That's a fact. But if you can be able to couple them both, be able to make it to where you have Arkansas pride connected with those players because of the success that they had on the court at Bud Walton Arena and beyond, it's just going to increase your level of energy. It's going to increase the brand. And even after Cal leaves Arkansas, which I hope he has nothing but the highest level of success, but once he leaves Arkansas, it's going to be a huge brand that may attract huge names to come in and take over and to continue it on. It very well could. I know I'm speaking a lot in generalities of what could be, doing a little forecasting. A lot of things have to take place before that. But the point is it's just great to see any sort of representation from the University of Arkansas in pro sports, no matter what it is. It could be football, it could be basketball, it could be baseball, it could be Olympic sports. It doesn't matter. It always will get your attention. You'll be tracking through to be like, hey, I saw in the paper, I read online that so-and-so's running in the 4x800 in the Olympic Games. He's from Arkansas. Oh, let's root for him. Let's watch him. It's as simple as that. Arkansas fans love their own. They love the people that represent them. They love the people that were a part of them. And they will always truly root for anybody that ends up going out on their own to try to make their lives, make it be the best it can be, and to still remember where they came from. Maybe they didn't actually come from Arkansas, but Arkansas was part of the journey. And that matters to a lot of people. And it definitely matters to me. Folks, another thing that matters to me is our friends over at L Jennings Law. As we know, just like in sports, preparation is key to everything. And at L Jennings Law, they understand that more than anybody. Specializing in estate planning, including crucial documents like trust and wills and powers of attorney, and healthcare directives, they ensure that your family is protected and provided for, no matter what comes your way. So don't leave your future to chance. Contact L Jennings Law today to create a plan that is comprehensive as it is comforting, and they are experts in what they do. So you can give them a call today at 501-501-WILL. That's 501-501-9455. You can also visit their website at ljenningslaw.com. But no matter what it is when it comes to anything that you need dealing with trust, business planning, and elder law, do it with L Jennings Law at 501-501-WILL. That's 501-501-9455.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
All Natty, all the time. Powered by Arkansas, for Arkansas. The John Nabors Show is live from the Natty State Sports Studios.
All right, folks, it is time for your Arkansas update presented by Davis & Garrett Insurance, your independent auto owner's insurance agency, securing what matters the most. And for your Arkansas update, as a reminder of what we just talked about, Jordan Walsh was part of the Boston Celtics team that ended up winning the NBA Finals, an NBA title. For him, Daniel Gafford, it's unfortunate because, you always want to see them, any Razorback play well, especially in the NBA Finals. But he was able to get 6 points, 3 rebounds in the game, but the Mavericks just weren't enough, as they'll hopefully be back next year, and hopefully Daniel Gafford have another chance to play really well and be a part of the Mavericks team that maybe makes it back. We'll see. But also in some other news too, I always think this is pretty fascinating whenever Razorback greats are named to the 2024 UA Sports Hall of Honor class. But those have officially been announced, where 8 former University of Arkansas student athletes, as well as a legendary coach, have been selected to the 2024 class for the Arkansas Sports Hall of Honor. Raven Caldwell, who played football. Alex Collins, rest in peace. Football. Matt Hemingway for men's track and field. Matt Jones for football. Kareem Reed for men's basketball. Coach Dave Van Horn for baseball. Devin Wallace for softball. Actually went to school and had classes with her. David Walling for baseball, and Wendy Willis for women's basketball. All of those will be formally inducted into the ceremony held on the Friday, September 13th at the Walton Arts Center in Fayetteville. Collins will be inducted posthumously. So that was something that is always cool to see, but really good class, really good names in there, and they're going to be part of the Hall of Honor. And then also something that's happened with the Razorback baseball team, which I know the season's over. Now it's about what is the transfer portal going to look like? Who's going to be doing what? How's that all going to look? Everything like that. Well, Arkansas, of course, just like with the transfer portal, it giveth and it taketh away. And Jason Jones is going to be someone who is entering into the transfer portal, and he did so according to D1Baseball.com. He did so yesterday. He started 18 games in left field and once in right field, but he also started a game at first base, third base, and DH as a freshman. So you talk about a guy that was really all over the place and playing a lot of different positions, but was only able to have a career batting average of 195 while he played in 43 games during his 2 seasons. What's crazy, and this is according to HawkSports.com, because I had completely forgot about it. I knew he was a really good player coming out of high school, but he was ranked the number 8 high school baseball recruit by Baseball America in the class of 2022. And again, just kind of maybe shows how naive I was, or maybe how much I don't pay attention to the college baseball recruiting element. But the fact that he was that high of a high school prospect really just kind of makes you scratch your head and be like, okay, so what was going on? Was it something that he did? Was it something that, was it just not a bad fit? Was he overhyped? Like, all those questions are going to get asked about. But here's my thing, is sometimes, it's just about a fit. It's just about, finding your own role on a team. And at a place like Arkansas, you got a ton of talent across the board. I mean, next level talent. And, there's players that may not have played a whole lot at Arkansas, but when they transferred to some other pretty nice school, they were a huge part of it. And I don't think that's a thing of like, why didn't the coaches and Dave Van Horn, they couldn't coach him, I guess, or was there some sort of issue? No, sometimes it's just a matter of getting your opportunity. Sometimes it's a matter of just developing the right way, and sometimes it's a matter of finding the right fit. And so with Jason Jones, I don't want to assume anything, but I'm assuming that's probably something that's like, hey, you played 2 years. This is kind of where you're at right now. And maybe in his mind too, he was like, I want to try something different. I want to go somewhere different. This isn't working out for me. This is not what I expected it. I'm not getting to the point I'm at. So I'm going to be looking elsewhere. And that's the thing about with the transfer portal. Yeah, it's a big deal in college football. It's a big deal in college basketball. But in college baseball and sports like that, I mean, you think about how many baseball teams are out there in college baseball. It's so many. And they're always looking for players and always looking for opportunities. And the scholarship limitations kind of puts that in a weird spot where it's still 11.7 scholarships for the entire team. So, for someone like him, he could end up at a really big time school. He could go to another SEC school. He could go to some of these schools in the Big 12. I mean, there's just going to be a lot of options for him. I think a lot of people are going to be coming after him. And I really wish him nothing but the best of luck. Truly to wish him nothing but the best of luck. Hopefully he ends up doing some big things wherever he ends up going, but Arkansas is going to be without him. And at this point in time, it's just Jason Jones as well as Hunter Grimes. Those are the only 2 players that have entered into the portal at this point in time from the Razorback baseball team from this past year, which also I thought it was so funny that Hunter Grimes, he's seeking a 7th collegiate season at his 4th school. He redshirted this past year, but he's going to be looking for a 7th year of eligibility at a 4th different school. It's like, man, a lot of people go to college for 7 years. It's called doctors, or in this case, Hunter Grimes, going to different schools too. So again, wishing nothing but the best of luck. No harm, no foul there, but still just a little update for you on some of the Razorbacks that will be moving on and trying to find a new place to play, and wish them nothing but the best of luck. So there you have it. There's your Arkansas update presented by Davis & Garrett Insurance, your independent auto owner's insurance agency, securing what matters the most.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
All Natty, all the time. Powered by Arkansas, for Arkansas. The John Nabors Show is live from the Natty State Sports Studios.
All right, let's get into some SEC updates that have been going on in the college landscape. And there's 2 really important stories, or at least stories that I thought was worth mentioning, dealing with some of the SEC. And this first one actually comes because of LSU, the LSU Tigers. So according to ESPN's own Adam Rittenberg, Les Miles, the former LSU coach, he has filed a lawsuit against LSU claiming that the school's decision to vacate his wins as head coach have cost him a chance for the College Football Hall of Fame qualification. So that, just reading that headline alone makes it already sound extremely dicey of what it could possibly entail and what it could possibly mean. But what's funny is if you go into the article and you start reading about some of the reasons behind it or what's going on with it, it says, quote, the Miles lawsuit cites a 1971 Supreme Court decision in the very first sentence in reference to his own battle. Quote, where a good person or a person's good name, reputation, honor, or integrity is at stake because of what the government is doing to him, notice and an opportunity to be heard are essential. Okay. You know, he could have just used hey, this is crap, and I don't want to, like, this is unfair. I mean, you might as well just use that. Because here's the thing. If you're Les Miles, it comes down to this specific thing. He has a chance to go into the Hall of Fame because you have to be qualified to get into the Hall of Fame. You have to have certain requirements. For instance, he has a record of 145 and 73. So he has a 66.5 winning percentage, which is well above the 60% requirement that it takes to be eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame. But because LSU decided to vacate 37 wins due to level 1 violations of paying the father of a recruit over $180,000 over a 5-year period, that means right now, according to the record books, he has 108 wins and 73 losses, which puts him right at 0.597 winning percentage, which is 0.003 below the requirement, and he's ineligible. So you're talking about a fraction below the threshold of him getting into the College Football Hall of Fame. It's a pretty brutal thing. Especially when he falls right below the line, where on the field, he's eligible, no questions asked. Like 100% he is eligible. But because of the vacation of those particular wins, it puts him right underneath it. So, I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this type of thing. Because obviously Les Miles and his horrible end to his Kansas tenure, it didn't help his cause. You know, if he would have won a little bit more games and being as terrible as he was up there in Kansas, but you know, it's Kansas, it's tough, even though other coaches have proven to win, then maybe be a little bit different. But these are one of the things where I kind of like, I think that maybe you should just cut him a break. I think you should maybe allow him to be into the Hall of Fame. Because say what you want about him and some of the stuff that's happened, especially off the field, some of the allegations and all of that, it's pretty nasty, it's pretty raw, it's pretty terrible, everything. Like, I totally get that. But when the wins were vacated because of the level 1 violation of paying the father of a recruit over $180,000 of a 5-year period, which, as we know right now in this modern day and age of NIL, is legal, I think he should be allowed in. Some of you are going to disagree with me. Some of you are going to say, nope, rules are rules. Even if they've changed the rules, it's still the rules. And I don't disagree with that at all. I am just saying when it comes to certain things, like Reggie Bush, for instance. Reggie Bush finally got his Heisman back. Okay? Reggie Bush got his Heisman back. Reggie Bush should have never had his Heisman taken. But they stepped up. They did the right thing. They gave it back. Especially in the fact that what he got in trouble for, or what he got it taken away for, was due to the fact that what happened when he was a kid and what happened when he was a student at the University of Southern California, it's now legal. You know, people can say it was on whatever grounds they want, but that's the case. It's legal now, so do the right thing. And I kind of feel the same way about Les Miles. Yes, back then, it was illegal. Back then, it should be, but should that keep the man out of the College Football Hall of Fame, who won a national title, who had a lot of success at LSU, I mean, was one of the best coaches and had one of the best runs and best tenures that you could have, consistently churning out 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 win seasons? I mean, you got to give a lot of credit where credit is due. And I think that if there's ever something like this, now, if it's something other than just pay for play or recruiting violations of that magnitude, then okay, that's a little bit different. But when you're talking about vacating wins because of something that happened long ago and now is fine, just do the right thing. Just do the right thing. I honestly feel the same way about steroids in baseball, which, again, I'm probably going to piss off all the baseball purists. But that's honestly a way I feel. I feel that if you are a baseball player that was involved or did some of the things with the old steroid era and you got busted with them and everything, I still think you should be in the Hall of Fame because I don't care what anybody says. Barry Bonds, for instance. He had all these steroids. He did steroids. The man hit more home runs than anybody in the history of the sport. He hit more home runs. And not only in his career, but in a single season. And I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody says, folks. It is so difficult to go in and play the game of baseball and to be a hitter. But also, he was doing it against pitchers that were still the highest level, who they may have even been juicing too in some cases. So, not to go on a tangent about that, but I'm just telling you that's how I feel. That's how I feel about it and how I feel like it should be done. But again, that's just me. But we'll talk about the other SEC story here in just a second. But I got to tell you about our friends over at BroThrow.com/Natty. We know the NBA finals are over and the NBA season's over, but hey, Major League Baseball is still going really strong, and you can get to betting with a community of people, also betting with your friends and putting up your money where your mouth is. For instance, right now, you got the Cardinals and the Marlins facing off against each other. And maybe you're a Cardinal fan out there. Maybe you do things the Cardinal way. Well, if you go to BroThrow.com/Natty, you can see exactly what the betting's looking like right now and what people are feeling. Are people feeling more of the Marlins, feeling more of the Cardinals? Well, as of right now, the Cardinals are favored by -1.5 runs. And you got a guy named Derek that says, hey, I think $15. I think $15 for the Cardinals to lose, or at least for the Marlins to be +1.5. So what you do is you're a Cardinal fan. You're like, I'm not going to take that sitting down. I want to bet $15 the other way. And then you settle up at the end. It's a really easy web app to when you go to the website, you can be able to have Venmo, PayPal, whatever it is, and have the cash paid out as soon as it ends. But it's a way to be able to go up against real people with real bets and pay up the good old-fashioned way. And you save a ton of money on the juice. That's the key. You save a ton of money on the juice. So remember, it's free to sign up. You have to be 21 years or older, and it's available in most states. So just go to BroThrow.com/Natty to get to betting. It's BroThrow.com/Natty. Okay, so now I want to talk about this newest thing that happened here for the sake of, it's just something that bothers me, I guess is really the best way to put it. It's something that bothers me. Some of you may not understand why it bothers me, but it does. But I'm going to show you this particular screenshot right here. Now, some of you probably can't read it, but we'll maximize that. Don't worry. But you have these Texas A&M baseball fans. You know, the College World Series is going on, and Texas A&M is doing well, unfortunately. But see these Texas A&M fans right here? They're pretty upset, right? They look upset. They're yelling. Well, they got removed. This was like a story. They got removed from the ballpark because of them going over to the Florida dugout and just screaming at them, heckling them, yelling them, everything. And it was just a bad look. Well, let's go ahead and see exactly what was going on and why they needed to be removed. So this is according to the Facebook page of the Omaha Police Officers Association. They said on Facebook, quote, heckling an opposing baseball team about the tragic death of their bat boy is beyond unacceptable. Our officers and security intervened and threw out this duo of Charles Schwab Field. On behalf of the OPOA, you are no longer welcome in this city and deserve to be banned for life from attending any future College World Series. Wow. Okay, so it would be one thing if this was just something thrown out there as far as someone on Twitter, some random person's like, I hear what they said and everything. But it does have a little bit more backing whenever it's the Omaha Police Officers Association, because you look at their account, it's pretty legit. And also, it's not like they have a skin in the game. It's not like they care about who wins or who looks bad or whatever. The fact that they're saying this shows that that's what happened. That's what these individuals were doing from Texas A&M. They were heckling the Florida Gators about their bat boy passing away. Okay. I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here, and that's fine. And I'm going to be clear in the beginning. Every fan base has bad apples. Every fan base has bad apples. There's fans that are worse than others. There's fan bases that are worse than others. But I truly believe, and in fact, I know that there are good people and good fan bases that don't represent, like Texas A&M in this particular case. I know for a fact that there are good people who are Texas A&M fans. I know some of them. I know a lot of them, actually. Good people. Yeah, they're a little annoying because they're Aggies, but they're good people. So this is not a referendum on Texas A&M fans in general. This is a referendum on terrible fans in general. There are things that you can say. There's lines you can cross a little bit, maybe push the envelope a little bit, and get away with it. Like, I was the front row of the student section for many years at the University of Arkansas. In the basketball games, like we create chants, we create, when Marshall Henderson came to town, we held up his mugshot, stuff like that. And we'd make jokes and throw little insults, and so on occasion maybe one was a little bit more probably shouldn't have said that type of thing. But it was more just involved with trying to get into the head of the game of the others, just trying to do that. But the one thing that I can promise you that we would never do, and if they did, they deserve to get banned, was heckle the opposing team about the tragic death of somebody that was involved with the team that wasn't on the team, that wasn't like a player. It was the bat boy. Like, how screwed up in the head do you need to be? Do you have to be to take this type of approach where you think that this type of behavior is okay? When I don't care how much alcohol you've had, because it's always fueled by that. Let's be honest. It's always fueled by that. So moving that aside, that doesn't even matter to me. Because alcohol, as much as you drink, there should never be something that comes out like that. There should never be an idea where you're like, I am so drunk. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go over to that opposing team's dugout and I'm going to yell at them, but I'm not going to yell at them as players. I'm not going to yell at them as coaches. I'm not going to yell at them because they're the Gators. I'm not going to insult them for any of that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mock them and heckle them about their bat boy tragically passing away. Do you have any idea how sick in the head you have to be? Because I don't care what anybody says. That is something that man had to manifest. That's something that was in your mind a lot. It's almost like maybe when you were sober even, you're like, man, yeah, I should give him a hard time for that. That's, do that. And the fact that it was two guys, not one, two, that were doing this. Again, it's just mind-blowing to me. Like, in what world do you just say, yeah, that's going to happen. I'm going to say these things to them. Again, I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of the story. I don't know if we'll ever get to know more about it. Maybe it'll be some sort of explanation, but I don't think it matters. It doesn't matter. There's no reason. There's no rhyme behind it. It's just one of those things like, how embarrassing. Like, what if that was your dad or your uncle or your brother or whoever? How embarrassing that must be. Like, and I'm with them. They need to be banned. You go to that level of terribleness. You go to that level of evil, because that's evil stuff to say. That's evil things. Like, you go to that level, you don't need to be around people. You don't need to be around anybody in a public setting. You don't need to be around athletics. Especially like a team like Florida. It would even, again, not justifying it, but it would at least make a little more sense if there was some big brawl that happened. And, the two teams got out and fought each other or something in previous history. Like, that would be one thing. It would also be another thing if, one of the players had said something really mean or tweeted something really mean about A&M or something like that. Again, nothing's justifying it. I'm just saying that at least there could be some sort of weird roundabout way that this person justified saying what they did. But as far as I know, there was none of that. And that to be his go-to, like how many steps did you have to skip? Like, make fun of them for the gator chomp. Make fun of them for, being weird about their music that they play and their fight song and how annoying it is. Like, just do something like that. I mean, shoot. Like with Kevin O'Sullivan and some of the stuff that came out about him and all of that off the field, I still wouldn't have said it to him, but at least that's still not as bad as what they did. So again, it's not a complete condemnation of all Aggie fans, maybe most of them, but still, it blew my mind to see that there were real people that approached it that way at a college baseball game up in Omaha. That's why Texas A&M doesn't belong in the College World Series. That's why. But on a lighter note, though, I got to tell you about our friends over at Signature Bank. Listen, Signature Bank is the bank for the people here in the state of Arkansas, especially in the Northwest Arkansas area. They not only have locations across the entire Northwest Arkansas area, but they also have locations in Jonesboro. They have one in Harrison, too. So if you're in the market of trying to say, you know what, I want to go to a place where I know my money's safe, it's secure, I don't have to worry about anything, Signature Bank's your place. They have all the amenities. They make you feel so welcome every time you walk through the door, and they're going to do whatever it takes, whatever they can do to put you in position to be successful, whether it is your personal or business. They got it all, and they're going to take care of you. So go out and see them today. They got the locations, again, across Northwest Arkansas, as well as in Harrison and in Jonesboro. You can also visit their website at signature.bank. That's www.signature.bank. But no matter what it is, when it comes to your finances, head over to Signature Bank, the official bank of Natty State Sports.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
All Natty, all the time. Powered by Arkansas, for Arkansas. The John Nabors Show is live from the Natty State Sports Studios.
All right, we know that football will be here before we know it. It can't get here fast enough. SEC Media Days is going to be coming up here in just a few weeks, too. It's kind of the unofficial preseason exhibition before anybody really starts carrying kickoff. It doesn't matter. People are going to be talking football because we're going to have coaches and players, but still have that going on. Still some college baseball and some other things, too. So let's talk more about it as we go ahead and welcome in a very special guest, friend of the show. Somebody went on his show just yesterday. It is Connor O'Gara of Saturday Down South. And Connor, as you said, as soon as we started this, long time no talk. How you been, man?
John, it's been, 24 hours, I think, roughly, since we last spoke. And as I was saying to you earlier, I've been cutting up clips today, so it actually feels a lot more recent. It's good to see you. I do feel like in between, though, like we went maybe 2 months without talking, which is like that's about as long as we've gone in a long time, I feel like.
Yeah, I know. I've been wondering why my life has sucked so much, and I think I just figured out why. It's like it just we've gone way too long without discussing things. So, let's make a pact never to go that long ever again. But I know that there's things that we talked about, of course, with you yesterday, and dealing with Arkansas and dealing with Sam Pittman and everything. And I've talked about this with other people too. There's not just the overwhelming energy, excitement for Razorback football right now by Razorback fans. So my question to you, is there something you look at that you feel that if a Razorback fan says, what am I supposed to look forward to this year? You can point to this and kind of say, hey, this is why you guys may actually be all right this season. Is there anything you can point to right now?
I could point to Kyler Murray lighting a fire under the entire state of Arkansas. I could point to that.
That helps.
I don't know if everybody who's listening saw that, but Kyler Murray calling Arkansas football terrible. Maybe that's exactly what the doctor ordered in 2024. In all seriousness, no, this is maybe a bit more in Sam Pittman's realm. Maybe this is a bit more geared to what he is capable of as a head coach. Nobody's really going to be talking about us in the preseason. If we're talking about most interesting teams at SEC Media Days, Arkansas is in the bottom 5 of that discussion, because if Bobby Petrino was there, it'd be a different story, but assistants don't go to media days. But they're not going to have all these big headliner names that are there. And that when we see these scrums, that are surrounding each individual player, that it's going to be minimal. I mean, even last year with Rocket Sanders, I was talking to Cole Kubelik about it. It was amazing how few people in the SEC cared about Rocket Sanders, who was coming back as one of the leading rushers in all of college football. Arkansas has to do a little bit more. It's always been that way. And in this year, to turn heads, they have to beat some of those teams that they're not supposed to beat. It's pretty simple. And I feel like that's what's going to change the national perception of Sam Pittman, which, look, he got the benefit of the doubt from Hunter Yurachek because of the rebuilding job that he did and giving him essentially a true year zero, where if there's ever a case for a year zero, it's inheriting whatever Chad Morris left you. So I understand why the rationale was there. But at the same time, this is a schedule now that you look at and go, okay, it's not just simply improving. We talked about this yesterday. It's not as simple as bowl or bust. There are wins that are created differently than other wins. And Arkansas has a lot of those on the table. Of course, the pieces have to add up, and Bobby Petrino has to be Bobby Petrino in order for this thing to get back on the right track.
So if you're looking at it from with the Bobby Petrino angle, because let's be honest, that's what everybody is most interested in about Arkansas, maybe the most interesting thing that Arkansas has. They have a pretty much a revamped offense. They have most of the same wide receivers, and they're able to, with the health of Luke Haas, the freshman tight end who looked really good throughout the first part of the season until he broke his collarbone, was out for the year. They got pieces there. Yes, the Rocket Sanders moved on, AJ Green moved on, but Jaquindon Jackson from Utah has been really looking the part. They have Rashad Dominion back. They had a true freshman in Braylon Russell that could be really good, and of course Taylon Green, the transfer. Offensive line has made some improvements because it's hard to get much worse than what they were last year. But just given the circumstances of not only having Petrino, but having Petrino with a quarterback that he wanted in Taylon Green, plus the pieces around him, I mean, how good can this Razorback offense be, comparatively speaking, to the rest of the SEC, knowing the type of talent that they have in place, but also the coaching of Bobby Petrino?
If this hits right, it should be a middle of the pack SEC offense. And I say that as a compliment, a big time compliment, especially when you look at the quarterback position. I just had a piece come out this morning on SaturdayDownSouth.com about how it is shaping up to be a historic year for SEC quarterback play with what returns. It's kind of similar to what we were talking about, like 2013, post Johnny Manziel, Heisman, AJ McCarron coming back, Aaron Murray coming back. A lot of the other pieces, even a Connor Shaw coming back, where there's so much depth at quarterback in the SEC that it's not going to be easy to get there. Now, I do think that there is a lot to like on this offense if the scheme is what I think it is, which last year I thought it was at Texas A&M, and Bobby Petrino, the job that he did with 4 different starting quarterbacks, not just 3, but 4, if we want to include Marcel Reed in the bowl game. I thought it was really impressive, the job that he did, and shows me that he's still one of the better offensive minds in this sport. You talk about Luke Haas, he was somebody that I had on my show a few months ago. And I don't often have a 19-year-old guy who's played 4 college games on my show, but he was that impressive. And I thought if there's ever a guy that can step into a role where he's the best offensive player on his team at the tight end position in the SEC, a la Brock Bowers, that Luke has the ability to do just that. And the offensive line, if Sam Pittman's going to be more hands-on with it, like he should have been last year, then that changes the equation. And you would think improvement is imminent there. But of course, it all just comes back to Taylon Green. If Taylon Green doesn't cut down on his mistakes, this is going to be a frustrating Arkansas offense, and they won't be middle of the pack in the SEC. If he can cut those down, and if this is a guy who trusts his legs, who trusts the system, and is able to have some of those big-time plays on the outside from his big-bodied receivers, I do think this offense could take a nice step forward. It can be one of those groups that can just surprise you in a given week.
I'm glad that you said it a lot better than I do, because anytime I have to say Luke has something, like it throws me off so much, and you handled it a lot better than I normally do. But yeah, that's a player that everyone's going to be looking at. And I want to go through just the SEC schedule with you for Arkansas, because they went 1-7 last year, and their one win happened to be on the road in overtime against Florida for their first time ever to win in Gainesville. So kind of a weird year and hard to do much worse. But they start on the road against Auburn, then A&M in Arlington for the final time that game will be played in Arlington, then Tennessee at home, then LSU at home, then at Mississippi State, Ole Miss at home, Texas at home, and then at Missouri. Looking at that type of schedule, I mean, Arkansas always feels like they have one of the most difficult schedules ever, but most of the lists I've seen, at least from like ESPN, FPI, and everything, Arkansas is actually not even in the top 10 of difficult schedules. But SEC play-wise, do you see 3 wins on there? Like just because I feel like that's for Razorback fans to get to a bowl game, feel good about getting there, feel like they're making tremendous strides. But do you see 3 wins on that schedule for the Arkansas Razorbacks right now?
I can see 3 wins. I also look at the non-con, and I think that game at Oklahoma State is going to be really difficult. They're third in the country in percentage of returning production. Kind of weird that I was talking about this with my colleague Derek Peterson, how low the odds are on Oklahoma State to win the Big 12 in a post-Texas Oklahoma world. That's a little bit strange with all the different pieces they have returning seventh-year quarterback Alan Bowman. But yeah, I look at that SEC schedule and think you have to start looking the part at home. It's so simple. And last year was about as frustrating of a home slate as Arkansas fans could have ever possibly imagined. I mean, even the games that you're in, the Mississippi State game, which, God, give me that time in my life back instead of watching that football game. It was just an absolute train wreck. And nobody actually won that game as far as I'm concerned, which is kind of why Zach Arnett was fired. But yeah, I look at this schedule and think you have to start beating one of those teams. And I think it's important to get to that bye week, which comes after they'll have 6 games before the bye week. You have to have that third win. Okay, it can't just be UAB and Arkansas Pine Bluff. Does that mean going into Stillwater and being able to get that win? Does that mean being able to beat Tennessee, something like that? I think that is what I would be hoping for if I'm an Arkansas fan conservatively, because if you don't beat those teams and have, an upset of a top 15 team or something like that, you won't get to 6 wins. I mean, you just won't. So, yeah, I think that's super pivotal. Maybe Texas, you can catch them in the right spot in a given, throughout the course of the season. But I think Texas is a legit national championship contender the way that that's set up. So I don't really know that that's great, although they don't really have a lot of those SEC road games, as strange as it is. Like their only SEC road game before that Arkansas game is at Vandy. So maybe the first true SEC road game can kind of catch them by surprise. But yeah, it's difficult when you play as poorly as Arkansas did at home last year. Maybe that A&M game in Arlington, with a year 1 coach and Mike Elko, they're still figuring things out, new personnel there. It looks a bit different, but yeah, it's going to be difficult to get some of those SEC wins and to get to 3 wins in conference play.
Connor, I don't know what you're talking about. If you want to go over to cover Big 12 football, okay, that was a defensive battle. That was great defense between Arkansas and Mississippi State last year. All right. As bad as it was, imagine being there in person and watching the game. And I didn't even get to see the field goal at the beginning of the game when Arkansas got an interception to start because I was just making my way in. Okay,
but here's the thing. And I say this, as someone that's a big fan of your content, like we go on each other's shows and stuff, like I'm really interested in what you do. You provide great perspective. I have the utmost respect for you. This. You had to be there. My eyes did not have to be on that game. If I had just come on my show the very next day, in which I recap everything that goes on in the SEC on Sunday mornings during the season, Saturday Down South podcast, tune in. If I had just come onto my show that next day and said, guys, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I decided life is too short to endure that game, and I just had to turn on something else. I turned on Big Ten Network, and I just did something else that wasn't putting myself through that game. I heard about what happened. I don't feel like I missed anything. And you know what? We just kept it moving. And it wasn't a slight to either team. You just saw the writing on the wall. I made that choice. You didn't necessarily have the same luxury and necessarily, have the options that I might have had in that moment.
It was something like if it like what was so tragic about it is it was like the perfect weather day, like in Fayetteville, it was sunny. I think the high was like 75 degrees, like with the sun out, but as the sun went down, it got into the mid 60s, like just a nice fall day. Mid-afternoon, just everything about or surrounding it was great, but man, just the game itself, shoot. Yeah. That game deserved to not exist. Like they should have just vacated it for both teams because you were right. Nobody won that one. But I will ask you though about scheduling because just last week we had an idea now of, since unfortunately CBS is no longer having the SEC game of the week, not going to have the great theme song and everything like that. However, I guess a pro to that is the windows that were released for these SEC games. I mean, if you want to tailgate, if you want to travel, this helps so much in being able to have an idea of it. But what do you make of the flex scheduling that the SEC and ESPN has done? And do you think that there maybe could be some adjustments or some things done a little bit differently to make it a little bit more exact?
Let me just say that I grew up in the Midwest. And I had a national perspective of SEC on CBS. And I have very distinct memories of being a teenager and hearing those drums drop and thinking to myself, my God, this is big time college football. This is what it's all about. So my perspective of SEC on CBS is one of great envy. And when I was sitting there at Indiana at a Big Ten school, and I'm watching Florida LSU on Saturday, 3:30 Eastern, I'm thinking to myself, this is the dream. This is as good as it gets. So I will miss SEC on CBS, even as it pivots to the conference in which I graduated from. I'm telling you that. Having said that, you're exactly right. There are a lot of positives with ESPN and ABC having these rights and having the ability to roll out these schedules. And the flex scheduling needs to be there to a certain extent because, look, you don't want to necessarily lock into a primetime game if you don't have to. It's really bad when Aaron Rodgers gets hurt in the first series of the entire season, and then we've got to watch your beloved New York Jets in primetime throughout the entire year. And yeah, there's some flex scheduling in the NFL, but probably not enough. And they're probably wishing that they had a whole lot more. And I think that you could use some of that to your benefit in the SEC while also giving people the ability to kind of build a travel weekend around what we're going to expect. And it's kind of nice that it's not like, oh, just 2 weeks in advance. And then we find out if this is an 11 a.m. Eastern game or a 7:30 game or something like that. That can drastically change the course of a college football weekend. So it will have some positives, despite the fact that there will be a big hole in all of our hearts with SEC on CBS being no longer.
I'm glad I'm getting strays sent my way from you about the Jets and everything, but that's okay. I guess it's deservingly so. But I do agree. It's like I was thinking with me and my buddies, and when we tailgate for games, it was just a chore, to try to figure out, be like, all right, well, we think that, this game might be this time. That game is this week, so that game may be better than our game, but then our game should be maybe in that. Like, this takes away of a lot of it, and I do like the adjustment period that it's gone on and everything. But another thing about scheduling is that, like, we saw news today that USC and Ole Miss canceled their home and home series that they were going to have in 25 and 26. And, that happens before or whatever. But do you think that there's something to that? It is going to be a 9-game schedule in SEC play. Like, do you think that maybe that played a factor into it, or maybe that's something that's actually going to happen here in the next couple of seasons in the SEC?
I think so. I think that could have played a part in it. If you remember, it was a few weeks ago, our Matt Hayes reported that Lincoln Riley was very desperately trying to get out of that season opening matchup against LSU in Las Vegas. And if there is some trepidation on the side of USC with the way that the Big Ten schedule shakes out, with them having that 9-game conference schedule already locked in, I wouldn't be surprised. So that could have had something to do with it. Maybe Lane didn't want to go back to the place where he was left on the tarmac, and that had something to do with it. Who knows? It could have absolutely been the SEC is trying to get ahead of this scheduling thing. But, if you actually look at the future schedules, and I remember when we were talking about whether or not the SEC was going to go to the 9-game conference schedule as soon as 2024, when Texas and Oklahoma were joining. If you look at the future schedules, there was something like, I think, 36 matchups that were set up where they would have been over the limit of an 8-game conference schedule during that 2-year stretch. So that means, like, Georgia's already got, they've already got the 4 non-conference games lined up, and 3 of them are Power 5 opponents. And that's a difficult thing to have to get out of those contracts. And that's a lot of, back end work that you're having to do. And, teams typically don't like having to deal with that, despite the fact that athletic directors line up these matchups something like 10 years in advance just because they're bored and they want a headline on June Wednesday. So, yeah, I do think that we will hopefully get there, but ESPN doesn't necessarily have to grant the SEC this. They're like, look, we got a contract. We don't have to do anything just out of goodwill. We've got you guys locked in for another decade, and we don't necessarily have to do this just because you add this to the table. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I hope we get there because I would like to see more competitive games. But there are a lot of teams in the SEC, Alabama and Georgia being a couple, Florida as well, that have already kind of beefed up their non-conference schedules, and they're not necessarily doing what Ole Miss is doing and taking some of these off the plate.
Yeah, I'll never forget Arkansas and Michigan actually canceled their series that they were supposed to have. I was really bummed by that because I wanted to go to the Big House. But then looking back on it, those were the years that Chad Morris was at Arkansas. Yep. So, what was the worst that could happen? Lost another game. It's not like it mattered anyways, but still. But we got football. But I've noticed, of course, for you, and I'm sure it's always been this way, but you've been following college baseball, SEC baseball, now at the College World Series. You've been on top of it, man. And I guess when you have as many SEC teams in it, which pains me dearly to even mention, but it's been pretty much all SEC and all the time here. So, yeah, you've been expounding a little bit now, not only just football, but also in the college baseball ranks too.
They call me Connor Batts. They don't. They really don't. You can see I got a little bit of baseball love here. Diehard Chicago Cubs fan. Played a little bit of baseball in high school. Brother played Division I baseball at Valparaiso. No big deal. Baseball kind of runs in our blood. But yeah, we've been all over it at SDS. And that's something we didn't do a few years ago. And it's been interesting to kind of see the market. As we talk about the media landscape, maybe this is a little bit inside baseball, pun very much intended, but kind of seeing the reaction that SEC fans have to it. And I've described it to, our mutual friend, Phil Elson, this way. I think SEC baseball is the ultimate, if you build it, it will come type thing. Because look at what's happening right now at Tennessee, a team that has become so polarizing in this decade, and all Tennessee baseball content is just kind of a lightning rod with Tony Vitello running the ship. And then even look at what Kentucky's done. I mean, a program that had never been to the College World Series. They were the last team in the SEC to be able to make that trip to Omaha, excluding a team like Mizzou, who of course went there, not necessarily in the SEC, but nonetheless, the market is absolutely there. And it looks like we're very much getting closer to a fifth different SEC team winning the College World Series in a row, which is just kind of a crazy thought. I mean, 4 different teams were there this year compared to the 4 that previously won it all, dating back to Vandy in 2019. So, yeah, I mean, the market is absolutely there. When you send 11 SEC baseball teams to the NCAA tournament, you're going to have a record, tied its own record with 3 teams in the semifinal from the SEC. Yeah, the amount of SEC baseball content that we can crank out on SaturdayDownSouth.com, the limit does not exist, to quote Mean Girls.
Thank you for bringing up the fact that so many these different teams have won a College World Series in the SEC. And
sorry, that was mean. That was very uncalled for. Arkansas fans, it's a good place to be, right? Like, think about it from this standpoint too. If you were, let's say, just totally irrelevant, no chance whatsoever competing on a yearly basis, you wouldn't have anything to talk about during some of these lean months. Am I right? Like, you would get to April and think to yourself, what in the world are we going to do? But that hope drives, and it drives interest. And I remember, it's very interesting as a Cubs fan. I got to 2016 and every game was life or death because you knew the history, the fact that, like, all right, nobody knows anybody alive that's seen a Cubs World Series and all these different things. And so when it finally happens, there is just not a feeling quite like that. It will happen for Arkansas one day, and it will be the buildup of all buildup. I'm not saying when it's going to happen. It doesn't mean that frustrating times aren't necessarily ahead, of course. But when it does happen, John, you're going to look back right now and you're going to say, Connor was right. That was a guy that's been through it, and he knew that it was all going to be worth it in the end, despite the fact that you had to get kicked in the teeth every single year.
Yeah, it's not just them not winning. It's the other teams that are. The
True.
Teams like Ole Miss that didn't even deserve to be in the postseason winning it, or Mississippi State, who, because of the COVID year, kind of benefited a little bit from it. And then if it ends up being Tennessee or Texas A&M, like, just take me, like, I'm done. Like, that's the thing that hurts so much, is not just Arkansas hasn't won it and knowing that they were a pop-up foul ball away from winning it, but the fact that, like a place like Tennessee, who just realized they had a baseball program about 5 years ago, and Texas A&M, who, all intents and purposes, they blow bubbles, for crying out loud. It's like, that's the stuff that hurts. Is it's like, them? Really? Them?
But here's the thing. All you can ask for in baseball, with how fickle it is, everybody always talks about, the fact that Miami 1999 was the last number 1 overall seed to win a national title, all those different things. We'll see if Tennessee can break that this year. Everybody thought Wake Forest was going to do it last year. All you can hope for is to have yearly talent and have a coach that knows what they're doing. Arkansas at least has that. And all you can do is just take as many hacks as humanly possible, and eventually one's going to break your way. I mean, it just has to. The nature of the sport, and how, look, the variance in baseball is just, the margin for error is just so unbelievably slim that, look, there are worse places to be. And I know that I'm saying that as an outsider perspective who hasn't lived it in the way that y'all have, but I got to think that day is eventually going to come, man.
Yeah, no, I think it will too. But, Mike Martin from Florida State, 11 World Series and never won one. So, there is ways of going about it. But, we don't have to talk about it. It's bad enough as it is in the other sports. We don't have to do that. But, Razorback fans are like, hey, at least we got Cal. That's what they keep leaning on. At least they got Cal. At least Calipari is there. So, but Connor, man, as always, appreciate you coming on. I did want to mention how funny it was because we were talking about before we started this about the Les Miles suing LSU thing. And he's literally 0.003% away from being eligible to get into the College Football Hall of Fame. And the only reason he is because they vacated 37 wins. LSU did when he was there. So he's suing them. Like, that's the type of story where I'm like, if that's not SEC football in a nutshell, man, I don't know what is. Like, that sums it up so perfectly.
There is no petty like SEC football petty. It is unbelievable. And, it's interesting because Les Miles is one of the best SEC coaches of the 21st century. There's really not a whole lot of debate about that. I'd probably put him right around that like number 5 mark. I mean, he's in that same class as a Mark Richt, but Les Miles has that all-important national championship ring, albeit one in which his team suffered 2 losses, a certain regular season finale loss that you may or may not remember very, very well. But nonetheless, he won a national title. And to have this type of separate relationship when we know the aftermath of the post Les Miles era, I mean, it was ugly seeing some of the stuff that came out about him after they lose the national championship in that game of the century against Alabama and the things that happened within those walls. I don't necessarily think that that's maybe the best move on the part of Les Miles. As we were talking about, like, just win more games at Kansas, which once upon a time, that sentence was laughed at. But Lance Leipold is showing us that you can actually win football games at Kansas, maybe, possibly. So, yeah, I don't think there are going to be a ton of people that are defending Les Miles, especially when all the rage right now is how is Mike Leach not in the College Football Hall of Fame. I think people would rather hear that argument as opposed to the guy that had a kind of nasty falling out at LSU and won 3 games and then was kind of fired in disgrace at Kansas.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, I see, like, I wouldn't mind him being in it. Like, if they just like, all right, we'll make an exception just because of what happened. But I could also see arguments for why I wouldn't. But yeah, Les Miles, I don't know if you remember this because this is going to be a throwback. This is a weird story. Real quick before we get out of here, like the first time I ever went to SEC Media Days, and you were in the room. I'm pretty sure you were in the room. It was the little like radio / writer's room. Like, I have the main room and then they have the little radio room, I guess, like where other people go. I don't know how to describe it. Anyways, like the coach would go in there for only 5 minutes and then they had 10 minutes and they'd be in the big room for a long time. But anyways, I just remember Les Miles was so strange. He just sat down in that room. No one asked him anything. And it was after the World Cup was going on. And he was like, has anybody been watching this World Cup thing? I was thinking about what FIFA, FIFA, the first word in FIFA with the letter F is for federation. And, when you think of federation, don't you think of a guy holding a gun? Isn't that what you think about? I'm like, ever since then, I'm like, I can't get over you, Les Miles. Like, I can't, that's the whole thing I'll think about every single time. I'm like, that was you. You were just weird. So maybe it doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame just because of his weirdness. Maybe that's how I feel about it. So,
I was not in the room for that because I would remember that story.
Man.
There's no way.
Yeah, I thought you were because it was like I kind of just sat there. I'm like, so this is media days, huh? Like that was like my first year. I was like, I guess this is what happens, which in some cases it does. Because I think that was the year after the whole Tim Tebow saving himself for marriage thing, I believe.
Oh gosh, that's way before my time then. Yeah. There's no way.
No. You're right. That was way before. This was like in 2013, I think. I think it's 2013.
2013 was the Manziel circus, right?
Yes.
Where it was, there was a million people there. That was, I didn't start with our companies for another 2 years. So okay. I would have been, that would have definitely been before my time. Otherwise, man, gosh, I like from a content standpoint, Les Miles would be fascinating, but then you try and piece together some of the things that he said and you're just like, we're on different planets, you and I.
That was the same thing with that was because that was Bielema's first year at Arkansas, and he came in with, just saying crazy stuff about now, like, we don't do the hurry up, no huddle offense. We're more worried about, player safety. Pick us last and watch what happens. Arkansas finished last. They went 0-8. So that's what happened. But either way, Connor, it's always great to talk with you, man. Appreciate you joining us. You can follow him with all of his work on Saturday Down South, as well as on Twitter X, whatever you want to call it, at CJ O'Gara. But Connor, man, appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your summertime, man. Staying busy, but we'll see you down in Dallas for SEC Media Days. All right, my man?
Can't wait, man.
All right, it's time for the final segment here on the John Nabors Show, and it's brought to you by Hopper, Termite, and Pest. Listen, it's that time of year, folks, when pests are becoming just that, pests. Got to get rid of them. It doesn't matter if it's spiders or carpenter ants, centipedes, silverfish, fleas, ticks, all those things. No matter where you're at, you have to deal with them. And luckily for you, Hopper, Termite, and Pest has the ultimate solution to take care of business. They can walk right into your home, and they have the tried and true solution where it eradicates many of the common pests and the works for many weeks, and it never has to be reapplied, even through the rain. So they are the ones that get it done in the best way possible. And because of this fact, they are going to take care of you because you listen to us here at Natty State Sports. So whenever you give them a call at 479-750-4070, use the code word Natty, N-A-T-T-Y, promo code Natty. Code word, promo code, same thing. Just say Natty. The boys from Natty State sent you. You do that, they're going to give you $50 off your very first service. That's right, $50 off. It doesn't matter if it's residential, doesn't matter if it's commercial. They're going to help you out. They're going to take care of business, and they're going to take care of you. So call them today at 479-750-4070 to get rid of all those pests and all of those things that's going on and bothering you in your home with Hopper, Termite, and Pest. All right, let's get into the Hey Y'all See This segment. So let's start with this thing. This is pretty rough. A high school team, which is always, anytime you start with that, it's always going to be a good story. They thought they won the championship in the state on a walk-off walk, but the batter didn't go to first base, and they lost in extra innings. So I know this may be a little bit tough to watch, and maybe a little bit loud too, apparently, but watch this. So he gets the walk, bases loaded, walks in, but he doesn't go to first base. He just celebrates. And because of that fact, they end up losing later in the game. They get called out. So it's unfortunate for that kid. It's unfortunate it happened that way, but it's the rule. See, he went over and touched first, but it's like, no, you walked out of the line and everything. You're out. So again, it sucks. It sucks, but it is the rule. So just a little bit rule of thumb here, folks. For any of you kids out there playing high school football, high school basketball, high school baseball, or whatever it is, make sure you always follow the rules, even in the celebration. I know it's tough to do, but especially in baseball, if you walk, just go and touch first. Even if you win, go and touch first. You got to do it. Coaches got to go out there and yell, do not move. Go to first. You win the game. But, man, that is a brutal, brutal, brutal way to lose. Also, what's going on here with I'm going to look at this. Like, what's going on here with Landon Donovan's hair? Like, this is the video. Like, what is happening here? If you need a screenshot of this, look at this. What is happening? You know, I'm obviously not have the greatest head of hair. So, I'm never going to judge, but it's just like, you're going to be on TV, my man, national TV. And you walked out, you got done, you're like, this is a good look. I can make this work. If I had hair that was that way, man, I would just shave it, just embrace it, man. Just embrace it, shave it all off, and be done with it. That's pretty rough. That's pretty rough looking, but ooh. I saw that and I was like, man, there ain't no way that's real. But no, it was real. It was actually real. And finally, I hate to hear this and see this, but huge Justin Timberlake fan. But Justin Timberlake's been arrested for driving while intoxicated in the Hamptons. Law enforcement official told ABC News the arrest occurred Monday night in Sag Harbor, New York. The pop star will be in court on Tuesday. First off, JT, never drink and drive when you're a celebrity like that. I mean, come on, dude. You got so much money. You got Uber. You got friends. Don't you have an entourage? You could have so many different options to do, but also the low-key flex of like, driving intoxicated while in the Hamptons. Oh, okay. Like, imagine being a police officer, like, that just calls over Justin Timberlake and, you're Justin Timberlake, and I'd be freaking out. But even regular people are like, oh my gosh, this is Justin Timberlake. And then it's like, you check it, you run the test and all that, and you're like, oh boy, okay, well, about to be famous here. okay, Mr. Timberlake, we're going to have to put you in handcuffs. You're under arrest. It's got to be a weird thing. But still, following the law, can't do it, shouldn't do it, never do it. But sad to see. And hopefully he learns his lesson from this, a very valuable lesson from all of this. But either way, appreciate everybody watching in and listening into the John Nabors Show. Be sure to like and subscribe to the John Nabors Show wherever you can find your podcast, as well as videos and everything like that. And we're going to keep it going. Same sports show, same sports channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and rest of your night.